Mr. President, I wanted to give all of our colleagues an update on where we are. I want to start by particularly thanking Senator Graham, Senator Flake, and Senator Collins, and many others who've been working across the aisle to help resolve the impasse we find ourselves in. When the Democrat filibuster of the government funding bill ends, when it comes to an end, the serious bipartisan negotiations that have been going on for months now to resolve our unfinished business, military spending, disaster relief, health care, immigration, and border security will continue. It would be my intention to resolve these issues as quickly as possible so that we can move on to other business that's important to our country. However, should these issues not be resolved by the time the funding bill before us expires on February 8th, 2018, assuming that the government remains open, it would be my intention to proceed to legislation that would address DACA, border security, and related issues. It is also my intention to take up legislation regarding increased defense spending, disaster relief, and other important matters. The shutdown should stop today, and we'll soon have a vote that will allow us to do exactly that. So let's step back from the brink, let's stop victimizing the American people, and get back to work on their behalf. Now, in that regard, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate vote at 10 p.m. tonight on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to concur with amendment. Further, that if cloture is invoked, all post-cloture time be considered expired, and the Senate immediately vote on the motion to concur with further amendment with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Yes, reserving the right to object, Mr. President.
Democratic Leader.
Well, I am happy to continue my discussion with the Majority Leader about reopening the government. We've had several conversations. Talks will continue, but we have yet to reach an agreement on a path forward that would be acceptable for both sides. For that reason, I object.
Objection is heard.
Therefore, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate vote at noon tomorrow on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to concur with amendment.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President.
Senator from Arizona.
Mr. President, on Friday, I voted with many of my colleagues here not to accept the deal that was offered at that time, the CR to go for 4 weeks. I felt that that was unnecessarily long. And also, I voted against it because I felt, like a lot of my Democratic colleagues and some of my Republican colleagues, that we need to deal with this situation on immigration, and that we shouldn't wait for the White House to indicate its preference. I felt that we could have an agreement to move forward. So I voted against the proposal at that time. In the intervening time, we've worked with the Majority Leader to, one, have a shorter time frame, which has now been offered, that of February 8th. That's longer than I would like, but it's shorter than a 4-week CR. Also, we've had an agreement that the Majority Leader has just announced that if an agreement on immigration has not been reached by that time, that the Majority Leader, using his discretion and his authority as Majority Leader, will move to immigration, and that at that time we can deal with the DACA issue and broader immigration issues generally. That moving to immigration, my understanding is, and I believe the commitment is, not to prejudice one bill over another, but anyone can bring forward their bill. There's several of us who have been working on a bipartisan bill. I believe we have 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats on that effort right now. That legislation certainly will be considered, as will other legislation, as it should be. I think the Senate should act like the Senate. And I just want to say that there's been a lot of rhetoric over the last couple of days about whose shutdown this is, who should have the blame. There's enough blame to go around. And I hope that we can move away from that and just find a way to open the government back up and move about our business and let the Senate legislate as it should. So I will add my vote for this agreement as the Majority Leader has simply outlined, that we have a CR that runs through February 8th. We seek to have an agreement on immigration before that time, and as well as the other outstanding issues. But if an agreement has not been reached by February 8th, that we move to immigration and that the Senate deals with it as the Senate should, without relying on the White House or other bodies, other chambers to dictate what we do here, and deal with this issue as we've dealt with it in the past, by debating it, by amending legislation, and by moving forward. With that, I yield the floor.
Hey folks, it's Steve Lookner from Right Side Broadcasting. If you give me about 20 seconds, we're going to have some live coverage here. Just hang tight and I will be on the air in a second. Hold on 1 second. Hey everybody, hang on. I think we're going to hear something else from the Senate in a second. So, if they start talking, I will stop talking. So I just want to make sure they're done there. Yes, their Senate's adjourning. So the Senate will be back tomorrow. We just heard from Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and Jeff Flake, and it sounds like what the Republicans are looking to do is they're going to vote at noon on Monday. Noon on Monday, there's going to be a vote. So noon tomorrow, there's going to be a vote on ending the shutdown. And it sounded to me, if I heard them right, that they are going to vote on a continuing resolution, basically to keep spending the way it is until February 8th. So a very short-term, about 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks spending bill to just wait. So that would push it till February 8th until they have to deal with it again. So it sounds to me that's what they're looking to do. They're going to vote tomorrow at noon. Tomorrow at noon, that vote. Hopefully we'll be able to cover that live for you. And so that's what's happening there. And let me just see if I can get you any other updates here. Give me 1 sec real quick. You are watching Right Side Broadcasting. So I didn't know we were going to hear from Mitch McConnell tonight and also Chuck Schumer and Jeff Flake, but we did. Let me just look up for you. So, again, they're going to vote tomorrow at noon. Chuck Schumer said we just saw him talking, and he said, we have yet to reach an agreement on a path forward to end the shutdown. McConnell said his intention is to move a DACA bill to after February 8th, if no deal before then. So, again, the vote tomorrow is going to be on a bill to just keep the government open until February 8th, at which point they would have to deal with all the stuff they haven't dealt with, like DACA and whatever else that people want them to deal with, that they want to deal with before the next spending bill would need to be passed, which would be before February 8th, because if they kept the government open until February 8th and they didn't pass another spending bill, the government wouldn't shut down again. So, but right now the shutdown continues. What do you think about this? If you have any comments on this, give me a shout on Twitter. I am at @Lookner on Twitter, at LOOKNER. And hey, I want to change our headline here. Hold on. Let me just change the headline here. Senate will vote at noon tomorrow to end shutdown. Was that all going to fix? Is that going to fit on the screen? I made it shorter. Let's see if this fits on the screen here. My new headline. Hey, it fit. Hooray! Okay, so I want to see if you guys have any thoughts on this. Give me a shout on Twitter, at Lookner, at LOOKNER. Dingle writes in, important to note, Flake voted to shut down government. Was Flake one of the no votes on the who voted for shutdown? I want to confirm that. He might have even said it when he was speaking, and I was running around trying to get this on the air. So Jeff Flake voted no on the yes, he voted no to bring the spending bill to a vote. So his vote was one of the no votes, which ended up creating the shutdown. At least that vote. I mean, I'm not going to blame him specifically, but he was one of the people who voted to not bring the spending bill to a vote. Thomas Johnson writes in, Steve, the Republicans must go nuclear now to keep our military going. So what you're referring to going nuclear is right now in the Senate, for pretty much all bills, you need 60 votes, not 50, because there's a filibuster that the opposition can do, and to overcome a filibuster, you need 60 votes to even bring something to a vote, to overcome a filibuster and then bring a bill to a vote. And President Trump, so there's sometimes talk of the majority party changing the Senate rules and getting rid of the filibuster, which is called going nuclear, and that would mean from now on all you would need is a majority. You really only need 50 votes, because if you had 50, then the vice president, if the vice president's the same party, the vice president can break the tie. But you'd need a majority, not 60 votes in the Senate. Changing the rules would be called going nuclear. To change it from needing 60 votes in the Senate to needing 51 to need a majority to pass a bill. And President Trump actually spoke about that in a tweet this morning when he said, Steve, change your screen. Great to see how hard our Republicans are fighting for our military and safety at the border. The Democrats just want illegal immigrants to pour into our nation unchecked. If the stalemate continues, Republicans should go to 51% nuclear option and vote on real long-term budget, no CRs. So the president saying if it goes on for longer, the Republicans should consider going nuclear. A reason that Republicans don't want to do that, though, is, if you go nuclear and you get rid of the filibuster and you make it so that only 51 votes are needed in the Senate to pass any bill, what happens? For all the Republicans know, they could lose control of the Senate and lose control of Congress in the fall, and then they have to go. Then the Democrats can pass any bill they want with 51 senators in the Senate. So, if there's a risk for Republicans to go nuclear, Mitch McConnell has said he's not going to do it, at least so far. Brand Independent says, can you replay them speaking? Well, I in theory could, but I'm not going to do it right now, Brand Independent, because it would take a little while. And we're doing the post show now, but you can rewind. You can replay them speaking. You can replay them speaking because we're on YouTube, so you can just rewind the video. So you can replay them speaking, Brand Independent. Menorcan says, both parties playing politics. Trump should have gone with his original decision, in my opinion, and stuck with it. Now, what do you mean, his original decision? Do you mean that Trump should have... Because no matter what Trump did, the Senate still needed to pass a spending bill. So are you saying... Maybe you're saying something like President Trump should have cut some deal and then gotten the Republicans to go along with it. Because it's still, no matter what President Trump... Even if President Trump made a deal with Chuck Schumer, the Senate has to approve the spending bill or it doesn't happen. Reagan Better says, Democrats are going to keep the government closed until immigration is allowed. It's a midterm election push, Lookner. So you think, Eric, that the Democrats are going to keep the government closed until they get a DACA bill, until they get protections enshrined into law for DACA recipients who are people who came to America illegally as young people. And you're saying you think that they're going to wait the shutdown out until they get that into law. We the People says, is there a bomb in Florida or not? I heard there was some sort of improvised explosive device that went off in a Florida mall. No one was hurt, but it is being investigated. That's the latest I've heard. If I find out more interesting details on that, I will post them on my Twitter, @Lookner. Hey, by the way, thank you to our moderators for being with us on our unplanned coverage tonight. JC and Webster are there. Thank you, guys. And if you like our Right Side Broadcasting's coverage, don't forget we are viewer-supported. You keep us on the air with your donations. So if you want to donate, you can go to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the little dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. All right, I'm getting a couple more requests to replay the speeches, so I'll tell you what, maybe I'll do it. The way I got to do this, though, is do this. See, if I go back here, here's McConnell. All right, I'm going to do this. You know what? People ask, so I'm going to replay McConnell and Schumer and Jeff Flake. It's not that long, so let me do that.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, I wanted to give all of our colleagues an update on where we are. I want to start by particularly thanking Senator Graham, Senator Flake, and Senator Collins, and many others who've been working across the aisle to help resolve the impasse we find ourselves in. When the Democrat filibuster of the government funding bill ends, when it comes to an end, the serious bipartisan negotiations that have been going on for months now to resolve our unfinished business, military spending, disaster relief, health care, immigration, and border security will continue. It would be my intention to resolve these issues as quickly as possible so that we can move on to other business that's important to our country. However, should these issues not be resolved by the time the funding bill before us expires on February 8th, 2018, assuming that the government remains open, it would be my intention to proceed to legislation that would address DACA, border security, and related issues. It is also my intention to take up legislation regarding increased defense spending, disaster relief, and other important matters. The shutdown should stop today. And we'll soon have a vote that will allow us to do exactly that. So let's step back from the brink. Let's stop victimizing the American people and get back to work on their behalf. Now, in that regard, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate vote at 10 p.m. tonight on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to concur with amendment. Further, that if cloture is invoked, all post-cloture time be considered expired, and the Senate immediately vote on the motion to concur with further amendment with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Yes, reserving the right to object, Mr. President.
Democratic Leader.
I am happy to continue my discussion with the Majority Leader about reopening the government. We've had several conversations. Talks will continue, but we have yet to reach an agreement on a path forward that would be acceptable for both sides. For that reason, I object.
Objection is heard.
Therefore, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that notwithstanding Rule 22, the Senate vote at noon tomorrow on the motion to invoke cloture on the motion to concur with amendment.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President.
Senator from Arizona.
Mr. President, on Friday, I voted with many of my colleagues here not to accept the deal that was offered at that time, the CR to go for 4 weeks. I felt that that was unnecessarily long. And also, I voted against it because I felt, like a lot of my Democratic colleagues and some of my Republican colleagues, that we need to deal with this situation on immigration, and that we shouldn't wait for the White House to indicate its preference. I felt that we could have an agreement to move forward. So I voted against the proposal at that time. In the intervening time, we've worked with the Majority Leader to, one, have a shorter time frame, which has now been offered, that of February 8th. That's longer than I would like, but it's shorter than a 4-week CR. Also, we've had an agreement that the Majority Leader has just announced that if an agreement on immigration has not been reached by that time, that the Majority Leader, using his discretion and his authority as Majority Leader, will move to immigration. And that at that time, we can deal with the DACA issue and broader immigration issues generally. That moving to immigration, my understanding is, and I believe the commitment is, not to prejudice one bill over another, but anyone can bring forward their bill. There's several of us who have been working on a bipartisan bill. I believe we have 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats on that effort right now. That legislation certainly will be considered, as will other legislation, as it should be. I think the Senate should act like the Senate. And I just want to say that there's been a lot of rhetoric over the last couple of days about whose shutdown this is, who should have the blame. There's enough blame to go around. And I hope that we can move away from that and just find a way to open the government back up and move about our business and let the Senate legislate as it should. So I will add my vote for this agreement, as the Majority Leader has simply outlined, that we have a CR that runs through February 8th. We seek to have an agreement on immigration before that time, and as well as the other outstanding issues. But if an agreement has not been reached by February 8th, that we move to immigration, and that the Senate deals with it as the Senate should, without relying on the White House or other bodies, other chambers, to dictate what we do here, and deal with this issue as we've dealt with it in the past, by debating it, by amending legislation, and by moving forward. With that, I yield the floor.
So that was Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and Jeff Flake. And so basically, here's what's going on. 12 noon tomorrow, the Senate is going to vote on a spending bill that would open the government until February 8th. And what Jeff Flake and Mitch McConnell said is, well, we can try, if we pass that bill and we keep the government open till February 8th, we can try to come to a deal on immigration before February 8th. We'll do our best. But if we can't, what if I'm getting this right, what Mitch McConnell and Jeff Flake said is if we can't come to a deal, if we pass this spending bill that keeps the government open till February 8th, and we can't come to an immigration deal by February 8th, then we will let's pass a spending bill on February 8th that keeps the government open for longer, and then right after that, the first thing we'll do is we'll just start working on an immigration bill, including DACA. That's what it sounded like to me that Jeff Flake and Mitch McConnell were saying. They were saying, look, let's just keep the government open until February 8th. Let's vote on that tomorrow. Let's do that. And once we do that, we'll try to reach a deal on by February 8th on immigration to put it in the new spending bill. And if we don't, I promise you that after the new spending bill is passed before February 8th, to keep the government open past February 8th, the next point of business for the Senate will be reaching a deal on an immigration bill. And Jeff Flake also suggested that they would be doing that. They would just do that on their own in the Senate. They wouldn't work with the president. They would just try to come up with their own deal. So that's what's going on. We'll see what happens. Just because they say that doesn't mean Mitch McConnell said, hey, let's pass a resolution tomorrow to keep the government open until February 8th. And let's try, and then if we do that, let's try to get an immigration deal before then. And if not, let's pass another spending bill to keep the government open for longer, and then we'll deal with immigration after. Democrats might not go for that. The Democrats might say no. They might vote no tomorrow on opening the government back up and saying no, we're not going to open the government back up until we have a deal on immigration. They might vote tomorrow, yes, keep the government open until February 8th. And then before February 8th say, well, but we're not going to keep the government open after February 8th unless you have a deal on immigration. So we don't know what the Democrats could do. There is a world in which we have a second shutdown, in which the shutdown ends tomorrow and it ends until February 8th. And then on February 8th, we have another shutdown. There's that world. So we'll see what happens. We'll have to watch and see. Hey, if you guys have any comments, give me a shout on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. JC sent me a message, one of our moderators, saying hashtag nuclear option. I'm just checking my messages here. Old Guy 1947 writes, if the Democrats get a majority in the Senate, they will pass the 51-vote nuclear option. They've done it before. The Republicans should beat them to that. I don't think the Democrats in the Senate have never done away with filibusters. There have been limited nuclear options passed. I believe there's no longer a filibuster for Supreme Court justices, for example. So that was done away with. But there is still a filibuster allowed for general legislation. And for legislation in the Senate, it still requires 60 votes to pass. So I'm not convinced that the Democrats would get rid of it once they were in power, because they have the same concern. The concern of somebody, whatever party's in power in the Senate, they don't want to get rid of the nuclear option because then they worry about what's going to happen when they're not in power anymore. And also some of them just might think, we think it's good no matter who's in power. Some of them might think that too. A message from Saumi. Saumi says, Steve, the word games. They keep saying immigration and it is not. Immigrant is legal through the Department of Immigration. DACA was unconstitutional to start with. The Senate needs a huge dictionary. There are huge differences between immigrant, migrant, refuge, and seekers. Reagan Better writes in, Trump's State of the Union is January 30th. Will he have a plan? Well, I mean, I don't know if the government's going to be open yet by the State of the Union, but it sounds like what you're saying is if let's say that the Senate and the House agree tomorrow to keep the government open until February 8th, which seems possible at least. What will the president you say, will he have a plan? Will he come out on it? Will he use the State of the Union as an opportunity to make his pitch on a deal for immigration? Don't know. No idea. No idea whatsoever. But it'll make, if the government is only open, either if the government shut down or if the government is open only until February 8th, when the president gives a State of the Union, obviously it'll make that even a more interesting speech. Dingle writes, and not sure how Democrats would cope with second shutdown just after reopening. A second one would fall squarely on them in everyone's eye. Danielle Mao said she saw a commercial while I was talking. I didn't see it here, but I apologize. We didn't do that on our end, Danielle, so I'm sorry if YouTube is doing that. Bonnie Burchett says, I believe as Flake believes the Senate should act like the Senate, I believe the representatives should by law and oath represent the American people. See if I see any other updates here. And as Sahil Kapoor from, I think he's from Bloomberg, he mentioned this. He says, so McConnell's intention to proceed to immigration by February 8th is hardly an ironclad promise, and House Republicans made clear they wouldn't be bound by such a commitment anyway. But is it enough to get to 60 votes to end the shutdown tomorrow? So tomorrow they're voting on whether to keep the government open until February 8th. That's what they're voting. Stephen Dennis reports McConnell has left the Capitol, so there clearly will not be a vote tonight. Well, the Senate adjourned anyway, so we knew that. Joey Diaz writes in, DACA can be negotiated. Those dreamers didn't break any laws themselves, but this shouldn't be a concerning issue in reopening the government. ASG said, why did the original DACA plan not have a path dedicated to citizenship? I'm assuming the original DACA plan didn't have a path to citizenship because that might have made it too politically unpalatable. And also, maybe the Obama administration thought not only if we had a path to citizenship, we would get more, that DACA would get more opposition, but maybe they thought that might have a greater chance of being struck down by the courts if they had given a path to citizenship. So I don't know the exact reasoning, but I can imagine those reasons being part of why the original DACA policy put into place under the Obama administration didn't have a path to citizenship. Tim Tam says, Steve, the background image is moving so fast it's making me dizzy. Hey, Tim Tam, just so you know, this is like the slowest speed. We used to have it faster. So I'm sorry that the background, but this is pretty slow this is about as slow as we can go without it like seeming glacial. So, hey, your point, I understand your point. I respect your view. Different people have different views on the backgrounds. I'm just telling you though that we have slowed down the background from where it used to be. So I apologize. Not every graphic's going to work for everybody. But you should always feel free to write to us about your opinion about our graphics or whatever. We are happy to. We want to know what you think about them. Danielle Delgado says, so if they vote to keep the government open, does that help with the military's active duty pay, or will they still be on hold? If they vote to keep the government open until February 8th, everybody gets paid who is normally getting paid. Everybody comes back to work who's going to be furloughed. Actually, nobody's missed a day yet. People are going to start. Well, I don't know if that's the case actually, because maybe some people were supposed to work on weekends. But yeah, everybody gets paid if they keep the government open. But what they're voting on tomorrow would only be keeping the government open until February 8th. Tammy POTUS writes, and nice to know the Democrats don't give two Fs about Americans, especially our military and vulnerable kids. We won't forget, and we won't let them forget it either. 2018, all red, baby. Well, we will plan on covering that. We will plan on covering that vote tomorrow at noon. So join us for that tomorrow. We'll definitely be covering that at noon tomorrow. So if you haven't subscribed, subscribe to us at subscribe to us at Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube and click the notifications bell so you get notified when we're coming on the air. Also, you can follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network. And you can follow me on Twitter at Lookner. If I hear any updates before then, I'll be sure to tweet them out at Lookner on Twitter. So we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes. So if you have any other comments, get them in now. At Lookner on Twitter is where to send them. Again, thank you to our moderators for moderating during the chat, during the broadcast, and thanks. Someone donated before, and I think did I say thanks? I thought I said thanks. No, we didn't say thanks on the air, so I want to say thanks to that person. That was Jane RNH, and she said, JRNH, she said, RSBN will never be shut down. Thank you, Jay. Well, we'll keep broadcasting as long as we get enough donations, because that's what keeps us on the air. So if you like Right Side Broadcasting, if you like having this alternative to the mainstream media, please consider donating. You can donate by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat or bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Brand Independent says, I think it's the lines in the background that have that effect. What can I say? Different views. You know, the thing is, you cannot have the background, but then it looks really static, I find, without anything moving. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. MD Kutzler says, tomorrow they vote on the continuing resolution allowing the government to open. Buyer before February 8th, they will vote on immigration. Sounds to me like he is willing to suspend cloture and vote up or down on the CR and immigration. Well, what's happening is that they're voting tomorrow on whether to keep the government open until February 8th. And Mitch McConnell has promised that, he basically said, I promise you, our first order of business once we deal with keeping the government open is going to be dealing with immigration. But he didn't say they will definitely vote on immigration. If Mitch McConnell's not going to commit to voting on immigration if they can't reach a deal with the Democrats, if he knows that he said they'll make a good faith effort to work on an immigration bill that would be agreeable to the Democrats. That's what he basically said. But he didn't say we're going to vote on this day or anything. And it wouldn't benefit him to call a vote if he didn't think the bill was going to pass. Dingle says, thank you guys for keeping us all informed. Thank you, Dingle, for your thank you. All right, well, I think at this point we're going to wrap up this impromptu coverage of senators speaking in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, Jeff Flake, and Chuck Schumer, and giving us a little update on where they're at. But there will be a vote at noon tomorrow in the Senate, which the vote itself wouldn't end the shutdown, but if they approve the spending bill until February 8th to keep the government open until then, I have to imagine the House would then approve it, and then the president would sign it, and that would end the shutdown. So I don't think it's a big deal if they pass a spending bill tomorrow in the Senate for the House to approve it and for the president to sign it. So we'll see if that happens. We will be covering that tomorrow, so join us tomorrow for the coverage. And that's going to wrap it up from here for now. And that's it. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to our moderators. Thank you to everybody who wrote in your comments. Appreciate it. And thank you, everybody in the chat room. I see some of the regulars there. I see Timberlab there. And who else is there? Agent Latte, Elysia, Jason Thornton, Lots of folks in the chat room. So we'll get light switch. We'll keep you posted. And again, I'll be posting on my Twitter if I hear more. So follow me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Follow Right Side at RSB Network on Twitter, at RSB Network. On Facebook, we're Right Side Broadcasting. And subscribe to us on YouTube and click the notifications bell so you hear when we're coming on the air. All right, that's going to wrap it up from here. That's been our brief coverage of what's going on in the Senate tonight. We will see you tomorrow for more coverage. We will be covering that vote tomorrow for you. So join us for that. For now, I am Steve Lookner. From all of us here at Right Side, thanks for watching. Have a good evening.